welcome to the first episode of Cooking and Crime. Now, basically, a couple of weeks ago, I came to the realisation that I have a lot of cookery books, a lot of recipe books. Some of them I've used one or two recipes out of. Some of them, like the one I'm using today, I've not made a single thing out of. But I've had this book for probably about 10 years now, and it's just sat on my shelves, and I've never used it. Which, you know, you can imagine, is just a sin. It's a crime. So I decided I was going to, once a month, make something out of these recipe books. Just something to keep myself occupied. And then I had the idea that, why not make it for YouTube? Why not make a video? Why not? You never know. But cooking on its own, it's been done. Everybody does it, and also nobody wants to hear me yammering on about myself for as long as it takes to make these. Add to that the fact that I was wanting to make it a podcast as well, and I thought, hey, combine two of my favourite things. Well, two of my interests. Cooking and crime. Well, true crime stories. Specifically with this, I'm going to be focusing on like historical crimes or historical criminals if I think they're interesting. So, let's begin. Today I'm just working through the recipe book chronologically from start to finish. So today's recipe is crispy vegetarian spring rolls. Now, before we start, I have a confession. I couldn't get spring roll skins. The closest thing I could get was phyllo pastry. So hopefully this isn't going to mess it up too much. Hopefully it'll still be nice. I need to get the big saucepan out. Ooh. Bear with me. This is going to be noisy. I also don't have a wok. So we're going to be using the soup pan to do the deep frying. And pray that the fire alarm doesn't go off, because that thing has a vendetta. Now, okay, cut all the vegetables into thin shreds, roughly the same size as the bean sprouts. Okay. We shall start with 60 grams of spring onions. Never use spring onions, so hopefully I am doing this right, and I'm not about to like fuck it up or poison myself. I need a bigger knife. Don't let my knife up. And we'll use a cleaver. That's what they do on TV. Today, my crime-related conversation is Ching Shih, who is arguably, and definitely in my opinion, the most successful pirate ever. A lot of people haven't heard of her. I'm going to change that, hopefully. Now, Ching Shih, born in 1775, she worked initially as a prostitute in a floating brothel, also known as a flower boat, which sounds a lot more fun than it would have actually been. This is going to take forever, and I hate it. So, in 1801, she married the pirate captain Ching Shih. He was the captain of a pirate fleet known as the Red Flag Fleet, and they were already like pretty well established, pretty big fleet, pretty terrifying. Within a few years, she'd managed to basically become his second in command. She had control over a large portion of his crew and his fleets. These making my eyes water. Why can't I just chop them into pieces like that? Why do I have to make them into shreds? Shreds. Oh, that's what they look like in the picture. Now, over the years, they managed to build the fleet up to the point where they were the largest fleet that had been seen in China. The largest pirate fleet in China. Some sources say that Ching Shih had a contract from the start that said she got like, you know, control over a certain amount of his stuff. Others say that she just built it up over time, being, you know, cunning and clever and proving to him that she could do it. Come on. Oh yeah, this is why I've not used spring onions before. I'm well aware that other dishes will not require me to cut them like this, but boy are they a pain in the neck. I'm making my eyes water. Now onto the bamboo shoots. These are going to be easier. These are nice, simple, flat shape. The way that they built up the fleet was clever. They somehow managed to unite other pirate fleets into working with them. So they took cruise ships and pirates that would usually be in competition with one another, and they convinced them to work together. Now there was rules about distribution of loot, etc. But all of this meant that by 1804, just 3 years after the marriage of Ching Shih and Cheng Yi, they were the largest fleet. Largest pirate fleet in Chinese history. Which is bloody impressive, if you ask me. Ah! Oh, you can stay like that. Did I mention I have no idea what I'm doing? Mushroom, mushroom. Badger, 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 badger. Mushroom. Okay. Can tell how old someone is. Yeah, the mushrooms are much easier to chop. It's about as fragile as my mental state. Anyway, no one wants to know about that. This is way too dark. Why does the sun keep having to go behind the glass? Why does it not the sun when I want to make filming things? Honestly. Delete my apron. My friend bought it for me. I figured I should do this properly because I tend to wipe my hands on my clothes a lot. I figured that's not very hygienic. So now we have apron. Mushrooms are done. Perfect. Go. Now it's the carrot. Ah, no, carrot! Don't escape me. You cannot escape me. You know, it's hard to film long scale when your camera turns off after a couple of minutes. So, Ching Shih. In 1807, Cheng Yi died in a typhoon. Now, at this point, Ching Shih was not his legal heir. So, she was in a bit of a bad spot. His legal heir was technically his adopted son, Chung Po-zai. Now, some sources state that he was just an adopted child. Apparently, it was quite common back then for adult adoption or young adult adoption, where people like Ching Shih, people with wealth and power, just pirates, would adopt, say, a teenager from a fishing village, make them their heir and, you know, train them, and they'd eventually inherit. However, there was another theory that possibly Ching Shih and Chung Po-zai were lovers. Now, if that's true, it was also a very common thing back then for same-sex partners to use the official adoption thing of like adopting someone to ensure that their partner, who wouldn't be recognised through law, would actually inherit what they wanted them to inherit, rather than it going back to, you know, family members that they didn't want to inherit it. Now, this meant that Ching Shih was not Ching Yi's legal heir, meaning she didn't inherit anything. So, in order to secure her place among the crew and avoid going back to the brothels, she became lovers with Chung Po-zai and eventually married him. What's mine is yours, what's mine is my own. Now, this meant that she was then secured as his second in command. And she had full control. How much oil? 2 to 3 tablespoons. Put more in because this pan is notorious for sticking. Again, I don't have a wok. I wish I had a wok. Touched me. Couldn't remember where the tea towel was. So what she did. So then she uses him to gain control of the absolute entirety of the fleet and all its crews. She would give Chung Po-zai orders and he would pass them along, especially if it was to captains who maybe wouldn't be happy taking orders from a woman. She ran the fleet with a strict code. Heating? Yeah. It came with rules, regulations, and of course punishments. Number 1. Any pirate giving his own orders or going against her orders was beheaded. Any deserters had their ears cut off. There is not enough space in this pan. Oh well. It's already a disaster. Who cares? So any pirate withholding booty was first given a severe whipping. If they continued to act like this, continued to withhold treasure, punishments became more severe. And they were good. Any pirate who took a female prisoner as his wife was expected to be loyal to her, care for her and protect her. Any pirate who raped or abused a female captive was beheaded. Anyone who stole from the ship fund or from the protected villages was killed. By protected villages, I mean she offered protection to coastal villages in exchange for supplies for the ships and, of course, money. This worked out quite well for the villagers, because if you were protected by Ching Shih, you were pretty much protected by like every pirate in China at this point. Because at the height of her power, she had, let me make sure I'm getting this right, she had a fleet of 1,500 to 1,800 ships, okay? And it was crewed by around 80,000 pirates. 80,000! And I'm saying pirates because there were some women on board. Whether or not they involved themselves in the piracy or they were just there as wives, etc., it's unknown. But there was women involved, so we're saying pirates to remain gender neutral. I think they were pirates. I mean, come on. Something nice about the smell of bean sprouts cooking. I just love Chinese food. Okay, what next? 1 minute. Add the salt, sugar, soy sauce, and fine, and continue stirring. Okay, that's a teaspoon. That's a quarter teaspoon. Where's my half teaspoon? Ah, there we go. Half a teaspoon. I need half a teaspoon. I also need a teaspoon. Let's put it. Okay. So. Half a teaspoon of salt. Wee. Half a teaspoon of sugar. Wee. 1 tablespoon of light soy sauce. Oh, I don't have light soy sauce. I have dark soy sauce. It'll have to do. 1 tablespoon. TBSP tablespoon. Ah! Oh! Sensible, Mr. Soy Sauce. There we go. One teaspoon Chinese rice wine or dry sherry. Now I couldn't get rice wine either, so we're using a dry sherry. Sherry is similar to rice wine. It's a fortified wine, so it's a little bit stronger than normal wine. Lasts longer. Best if you keep it refrigerated. You want a dry one, not a cream one, because if you put a cream one in, that is not going to taste nice. Yeah. Stir that in. Ooh. That does smell good though. I could just eat that, honestly. That smells really good, and I would quite happily just, you know, get a fork and eat this. I would. Yeah. Note to self then. Ah! Get back in the pan! And boo! And green sprouts, you're supposed to stay in the pan. This is why you're meant to use a wok. There is not enough space in this pan. Okay, stir. For 1.5 to 2 minutes. Remove the vegetables from the wok. With a splattered spoon, place in a bowl. Drain off the excess liquid, then leave to cool. Okay. Ah, did you hear my disc click? Need a bowl. Ow! Slotted spoon. to use this pan and not the little frying pan because there definitely wouldn't have been enough space in that. But if any friends or family are watching, I'm wondering what to get me for my birthday, I would not say no to a wok. Because like I said, I'm working my way through this recipe book and nearly every recipe needs a wok. See, oh, I'm cleaning up. I might be the cooker. See, I'm good. Oh, yeah. Okay. What the can you do again? Now we have to drain off the excess liquid. How to do this without losing my veggies? No! Veggies, come back! We took a little break, had some lunch, and the mixture should be cooled by now. Whoop, whoop, whoop. I feel like I'm forgetting something. I'm not forgetting anything, it's fine. So, now we're going to have a look at this veal pastry and see how it looks. Whether we need to, I don't know, cut it or anything. Yeah, we're going to have to cut that up. I wonder how many sheets it got. It doesn't say, it just says sheets. Come on. Can you just open, please? Thank you. Oh dear Lord, that is thin. Okay. Just going to just the chopping board with some flour, because this shit gonna stick to things. Oof. Oh, okay. Okay. I think that broke. Ah, it's supposed to be that big. Okay. Okay, now I do know it needs to be a square. I'm well aware that that's not a square. I'm eyeballing this, so it's not going to be very neat, but... Oh, come on, it's just pastry. Will you please cut through the ridiculously thin and flimsy pastry? There we go. Thank you. Honestly. Wasn't that difficult, was it? Now, because you were being stupid, it's gone completely squint. Some of these are definitely broken. Huh. Okay. Take two twice possible. I think I've made this too small. So we're going to make small ones. So you want her to weight down, the triangle pointing away from you. Like this. Okay. Lift the lower flap. This. Fold. Roll. Fold. Huh. These are going to be a mess. Need a little bowl. All little bowls are used. Will do. Little bit water. This is flour paste. So that's easy enough to make. Doopy doopy doo. So, anyway, back to Mistress Ching. The Chinese military, on multiple occasions, attempted to stop her. But, they failed. And that is a mess. They got desperate. Very, very desperate. To the point where they asked the East India Trading Company for help. Now, if any of you know anything about history, as to the East India Trading Company and China were not the best of friends, and this one isn't going to work either. Why? Because basically the East India Trading Company was the British government, mainly the English government, who looked upon any piece of land as their own. However, the British agreed to help. Why, you ask? Well, see, Ching Shih did not discriminate. If you had a ship and you had cargo that she may or may not want, she saw it as fair game. And so had been attacking English ships as well. Had even kidnapped and ransomed at one point members of the crew from an East India Trading Company vessel. They were all released unharmed, and one of them did publish his experiences aboard the ship. However, of course, because Ching Shih was an absolute queen, they failed as well. Eventually, she was faced with, well, the thing was, she was up against the Portuguese army at this point. Sorry, Portuguese navy. And there was a siege going on. What is this? And she knew that there was no way to win. Now at this point, the Chinese emperor was getting pretty desperate. And they were trying to get her to surrender, to retire from her life of piracy. Did she? No. Until this incident with the Portuguese navy, when she realised that this was probably something she couldn't beat. And so she approached the Chinese government. And this is where it gets funny. So, she had her own terms. She wanted to be allowed to keep all her loot. She wanted basically the entire crew to have full pardons. She also wanted employment for her husband within the Chinese naval fleet. And as outrageous, I'm butchering these, as outrageous as that may sound, you'd expect the government to go, yeah right, no way. You can't keep your loot, that's stolen property. We're not going to pardon the entire crew. But, yeah, that's not what happened. The Chinese emperor was desperate, and he agreed. He was like, yep, absolutely, just please stop being a pirate. Like, even though, like, the majority of your loot is probably our government belongings, please stop being a pirate and just retire. We'll even give you a palace. And they did. They had a nice palace. Her husband worked in the salt trade. And she opened a gambling house. Because, you know, after a life of piracy, sitting... Oh, no, look at that. That is terrible, Alice. I think some of these are going to have to be double wrapped. This is not working. You know, sitting around doing nothing all day would probably be boring. So she opened a gambling house. That one's perfect. Look at it, it's perfect. So we need to use less filling. This is the problem. We're using too much filling. Okay. Trial and error. Like I said, never done this before. No idea what I'm doing. Get out the spoon bean straws. That is a very tiny filling. A bit more. Oh no, bean sprout has gone in the flour paste. Me. So lovely. Nice. Bloody TikTok songs stuck in my head. I don't even know the words to them. All I know is the da 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 da. It's ridiculous. Now on to the scary part. I don't know how much oil I'm supposed to use to deep fry something, so we're just going to use a lot. Looks about right. Did I mention I have no idea what I'm doing? Now we heat it until smoking. You listening to me? Stay quiet, okay? You do not need to go off. Don't stop beeping. Kitchen roll ready? Now it says to do them in batches. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, it was supposed to make 12, but because I ended up doing smaller ones, I've ended up with 16. 4 batches of 4, sounds about right. Okay. Can you tell I'm terrified of the hot oil? Yeah, this one stuck to the page. Oh, I don't want to have to rewrap another one. Oh, my glorious little rolls. My glorious little rolls. So I tried timing. I timed those ones. But I know what they're supposed to look like. I got a picture. So we know what they're supposed to look like. I probably needed more oil. Ow! Yes, good thing. This is very dangerous. Do not do this if you're the kind of person that needs adult supervision. In a lot of senses, I am that person. But not when it comes to things like these. This kind of stuff I'm usually overcautious. I have never once set a pan on fire. Not once. I have though. I've also never set an oven on fire, but however, I have extinguished a fire within the oven. It started because somebody made lasagna and the cheese melted. And I thought, oh, it's fine. I'll eat my dinner and then I'll get rid of and I'll clean the cheese off the bottom of the oven. Someone else goes to make their dinner. You know, you can't blame them for that, that's fair enough. Someone else goes to make their dinner and all of a sudden there's fire in the oven. It wasn't me using the oven. I was the one who knew how to put said fire out. Because apparently it's not normal to retain the random bits of information you were told as a child, such as if there's a fire in the kitchen, you know, run a tea towel under the cold tap, bring it out, put it over the top, kill the oxygen. Apparently it's not normal for people to remember this kind of stuff almost 10 years after they learnt it, but there we go. It's a useful bit of information. So, there we have it. Vegetable spring rolls. Now, moment of truth. Pretty good, even if I say so myself. You can taste that the pastry isn't right. However, I'll definitely make them again. It is a lot of hassle, but if I was doing it for, say, a party or something special, definitely do those again. Now, please excuse me while I proceed to eat 16 vegetable spring rolls.